welcome back to commsHERO. We have been having a great day. I hope you've been enjoying all of the sessions. It's been brilliant seeing everyone's posts online. So please do keep putting your screen grabs and shares about the content that you've been learning on the socials using the hashtag commsHERO, and you'll be entered into the prize draw, which in true commsHERO style will be full of swag and all sorts of wonderful prizes, I'm sure. And also, please do use the emojis and the chat box so that we can chat through this session and talk about what we're taking away from what Stephen has to say. And without further ado, I am very excited to welcome Stephen, who is joining us not from a barge this year, but from Dubai. So I'm not sure where he'll dial in from in 2023. But he's setting the bar quite high. But Stephen is, I think, hotly contested for the title of the comms father, which I think Asif has, but I think Stephen is probably in the running. He's very well known in our industry and very well respected. He's an author, a blogger. He's the founder of Wads Inc. and Socially Mobile. And he's an advisor to creative agencies, and he certainly knows his stuff. So looking forward to this session, Stephen, where he's going to be talking to us about increasing our earning potential in PR. So I will be back a bit later to do Q&A, so please do put your questions in the Q&A tab. But over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Carly. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this session today. Yes, I'm from Dubai. Yeah, I'm dialing in from Dubai because I've got another commitment later this week, and so the team at commsHERO, brilliantly accommodated it so I could do both. So I'm going to talk about how to increase your earning potential in working in public relations. Public relations, we get very hung up, and you'll hear the phrase imposter syndrome used an awful lot. We get very hung up about our value, and there's some good reasons for that. But we're at a time and place in our profession, and I'm going to talk you through this, why I think this is where I think we are able to command our optimal value within the organizations that we work. And also there's some things we can do, some very simple things we can do, or straightforward things, not simple, they take hard work, to put ourselves in a really strong position. So my name's Stephen Waddington. You can find me on Twitter. That's my medium of choice, where I'm at Wads, and obviously the hashtag for today is commsHERO. Carly gave a brief intro about me. I've had a little bit of a renaissance during lockdown, in that I changed roles. I started this company called Wads Inc. I've spent my life working in agencies in public relations, built two of my own and sold them, and then did a long stint with Ketchum, working internationally. And Wads Inc. was basically born out of COVID, helping people who want to or are going along the journey that I've spent my career going along. It's a bit of news this week in that we've turned it into a family business. My mum already works for us, actually. She's our finance director, but actually Sarah, my partner, has joined the business to build out her own area of expertise. So it's a bit of news from us, hot off the press. Collie said I blog. I've written a lot. If you go on the blog at wads.co.uk/blog, you'll find 20 odd years worth of back history there. Everything I write is posted on there. That's led to a number of books. The most recent one, Exploring Public Relations and Management Communication. If you've studied public relations at a graduate or postgraduate level or professional level in the past 20 years, you will know that book. I joined the editorial team along with Ralph Tench, and we published the 5th edition of that last year. I'm also a professor at Newcastle University, where I teach and advise and support students through mentoring. This is my 8th year of doing that. And a bit about my own commitment to learning and development, which I'm going to talk about through this session. This year, I started a PhD at Leeds Business School. That's the Rhodes Bowl up in Leeds, where I'm based. I'm doing this part-time over 6 or 7 years, looking specifically at the role of public relations as it pertains to management, in supporting management teams with planning and decision making. So that's about me. If you want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. So what we're going to cover today, these 6 areas, I've pulled together data from various places around trade associations, industry associations, public government data, to build a case to show what the market that we work in, the state of the market that we work in, and what it currently looks like. I've done that from the perspective, a national perspective in the UK, but then I'm going to dive in and talk through some regional differences and what's happened during COVID then. We're going to look at salaries. Salaries are an all-time high, and there's some specific reasons for that. But we could do more to demonstrate our value. I'm going to look at some of the work that Anne Gregory has done, Professor Anne Gregory, around roles and competencies in public relations and how we can skill up with the goal of becoming more and more professional, and then leave you with basically a hacker's guide to how you can increase your own earning potential. So I want to level set and start off by looking at the value of the public relations industry. Now, the PRCA in the UK has tracked this data for the last 4 or 5 years, and you can go on its website and find the PRCA census. The most recent one, published last year in November 2021, valued the industry at 16.7 billion. That was its contribution to GDP, and reported growth up 6.1% off 2020. Now, remember, 2020 was an odd year for many industries, public relations among them, in that any aspect of an industry that was exposed to COVID, and many were, from a services point of view, in public relations, was seriously hindered by and hampered by the pandemic. That was counterbalanced though with areas that boomed. So anything aligned to public health, aligned to internal and changing engagement, saw strong growth. So growth of 6.1%. We're probably going to see the similar growth during this year. And this year has been a record year in a number of reasons, not least because we've seen the first professional services firm in the industry valued at turnover $1 billion. That settlement reported that in the summer this year, and that really is a significant moment in that it's a wake up and pay attention moment, because we've got a consultancy in our industry now that is turning over that substantial amount of income. In terms of employment within the industry, this has bubbled up and down with COVID. COVID obviously saw numbers fall back, but the industry employs around 100,000 people. I've got some more data I'm going to show you to that point as well. So, a substantial industry, 100,000 people with a contribution to UK GDP of almost 17 billion. And those numbers will go up when they're posted this year. COVID had a particular impact on our profession, and these conversations are well known and well rehearsed. I actually did a piece of work for the Government Communications Service during the first period of the COVID lockdown, where we looked specifically at the impact on the professional associations that are shown along the bottom of this chart by their logos. And we looked at specifically what happened to practitioners in these industries. And we saw that anything that was aligned to the response to COVID, so public sector and health, or B2B with the realignment of supply chains, grew. Anything that was exposed to the consumer issues that faced things like lockdowns, shutdowns, anything related to lifestyle events, entertainment, struggled. But that's come back since. what happened specifically, and another piece of work, and this point was identified in the piece of work for the communication service, but also through other pieces of work. We did a piece of work with the NHS, looking at how the NHS communicators within the NHS were elevated to senior management teams. And really reflected what happened in so many different aspects of practice, and that public relations, if it wasn't aligned with management before the crisis, it certainly was during and after. And that's, if you like, one of the dividends from COVID, that our practice has been elevated to support management now with planning, decision-making, employee engagement, marketing and sales. Employee engagement is a particularly interesting one. We've seen a boom in internal communications, and this is reported out by organizations like the Institute of Internal Communications, because there was that particular weekend during COVID, during the first lockdown, around the 20th, 21st of March 2020, when organizations that were office bound had to cart all their equipment home and shift to remote working. And we're still working through the issues related to that. And that's my final point to this slide. Public relations is still helping organizations with this hiatus around the role of the office and what it means, what the role of the office within an organization. In some organizations, it's deeply rooted in the culture. In others, they're moved and are shifting to these flexible forms of working. So public relations had a good pandemic. It remains elevated following the pandemic, and we have a base from which to build on. And one of the things we do through Waddington, related to the research I'm doing at Leeds Business School, is look at the market for employment within public relations, and we do that through the data set, through the LinkedIn data set. So LinkedIn allows you to, using various tools to look at the characteristics of a profession and people employed within that profession. We do this for public relations, and the data syncs very neatly with the data from the PRCA. So currently, there's around 100,000 practitioners working in public relations. We already know that from the PRCA data. But what's really interesting is when you start to look at some of the granular issues across the nation, and we've done this by looking at communities and clusters of practitioners in areas outside of London. So there's always been this London centricity and bias, and certainly our media, such as PR Week, trade media, focuses on London to the extent and detriment of other areas of the country. And actually that's completely wrong, because only 2 in 5 practitioners work in London, equivalent to a community of around 40,000 people. And actually the largest community of public relations practitioners, by far, 3 in 5 people, works outside London. And they're aligned to organizations wherever they might be based throughout the country. And there are clusters, and I've identified some of them here. So outside of London, the biggest cluster is Manchester, with 3,000 people, quite a strong community in Manchester. And then in each of the major cities, so Birmingham, Bristol, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Leeds, there's around 1,000 practitioners in each of these markets. So actually there are sizable communities of practitioners. And by the way, all these communities are growing, and we have seen growth in these areas since COVID. I've written a lot about this on my blog if you want to go and dig into this and look at it some more. What are those practitioners doing? Well, we're helping organizations understand the public sphere, and also all the issues that are going on around and occurring around organizations. Waddington published a planning tool on Monday related to this, looking at around 50 issues. We did a capability analysis, risk and capability analysis on around 50 issues, and some of them are highlighted here through the lens of PESTLE. Where you can see we're helping organizations plan around all these different issues, ranging from the World Cup to inflation, the cost of living, and technology coming down line. So public relations not only is growing, it has a very firm footing, and it's helping organizations deal with a huge level of complexity. I wanted to show you the key markets for public relations, the breakdown of that LinkedIn data. You can see there, yes, there's a strong dominance within London, but then there's a long tail outside London, and that long tail is far bigger, 3 to 5 versus 2 to 5, 3/5 versus 2/5 of practitioners outside of London. Now, what are those people doing? Again, this is based on LinkedIn data. And it shows a split, roughly a split between communicating officers or account execs within agencies accounting for about 30%, managers accounting for about 30%, and directors, comms director level or associate director or managing director in an agency and above accounting for about a quarter. And that roughly is the split. Now, there's a particular issue at manager level at the moment. I'm going to come on to that because we've got a shortfall because of COVID. Because people certainly just weren't recruited into the industry in 2020. The point here, though, is there are good jobs in public relations, and those jobs exist wherever you want to work now. The notion that you have to go down to London to get a job and work and build your way up through an organization or an agency just isn't true anymore. You can choose to work wherever you want to work, and that's a good thing. And looking at average salaries are bumping up at the moment. And this is data from the CIPR. The CIPR, like the PRCA, publishes an annual state of the profession survey. This is the data from October or November 2021, I think. You can go and find it on the CIPR website, and it just shows over the last 2 years, the last 4 years, the increase of the average salaries in public relations. So the average salary in the public relations industry at that point was 56,000. Now that's a good, well-paid job in public relations. Actually, and that's a mean. Actually, that could be low at this moment because of a whole load of issues I'm going to show you in a moment. If you look at across the range, and again, this is CIPR data from the state of profession, you can see the range of data. The entry-level role now 28,000, director and partner role within an agency or an in-house organization 76,000. Now those are ranges that those are means. There's going to be extremes at either end of those. So, I'm not saying the limit of a director or partner is 76,000. Certainly, you can see commerce jobs advertised for a whole lot more than that. Benchmarking by looking and talking by looking at data sets such as LinkedIn is useful, Glassdoor is useful, but actually going to recruiters who are on the coalface, working with agencies and in-house teams, recruiters have a real strong test on the market. And actually, I spoke to Rohan Shah, the managing director of Reuben Sinclair. I'm on his board. About this issue this morning, just to try and ahead of this get an indication of what was happening with salaries at this moment in time. And he said that salaries at the moment this year are increasing around 8 to 10%, and that's higher than the general mean within reported by the ONS. You can see there the ONS reported that salaries are rising about 5.4%. 8 to 10% sort of is where inflation is at the moment, so that's appropriate. 5%, 4% is considerably below that. He also said there's this particular issue and called it out, that individuals are being progressed through roles much quicker than they have been in the past. So now he cites this example, because there wasn't any recruitment in 2020 and it was limited in 2021 in entry levels. We've had a whole slew of people that are being progressed rapidly now into, in this instance, account manager level. And you're seeing that within agency, you're seeing that repeated across the board. And the factors that give rise to that, they're well rehearsed. We know about them: the cost of living, energy prices, retention, career development, and so forth. So the market's really hot. There's a real shortage at mid-level. So if you're in that stage at your career at the moment, you have a real opportunity to get ahead. If you want to understand salary data in more detail, go and look at Glassdoor, go and look at LinkedIn, and look to organizations like Reuben Sinclair and other recruiters who publish benchmark data. So salaries are good within public relations. Certainly an average salary within the industry of 56,000 is good. It could be higher. If you benchmark against other professions like law or accountancy, where I think public relations should be as a professional form of practice, professional advisory service, they could be even higher still. And that is our big opportunity. And Gregory's done a lot of work, and there has been an awful lot of work in research within the academic community, looking at the roles within public relations. It's broadly broken down into two areas: the technician role, the entry-level role, where you're a craftsperson, you're an operational person, helping an organization understand the public sphere and communicate, whether that be through social media, traditional media, or owned different forms of earned media. And there's a managerial or director role. Now, and Gregory, in her latest book, and I highly recommend it, Strategic Communications Planning, breaks down the market even further and looks at these four different roles within public relations. And if you're thinking about your career and where you sit, you should use this as a lens for how you develop your career and grow into through these different roles. So starting out as a reflective practitioner and moving up through operational to managerial. Educational is a specific category on its own, because we're realizing if we're going to become a professional advisory, professional service, we need to have strong educational and learning and development support. And Gregory is a huge inspiration for me. She was former CIPR president. She helped the CIPR establish its charter. She's done a whole load of work through the Global Alliance on helping understand what competency looks like in public relations, so what good looks like. This is a report I often cite, the Global Alliance study of capability, that sets out 11 capabilities and then up to more than 40 sub-capabilities of what a good professional practice looks like. And if you're thinking about benchmarking yourself and where you sit as a practitioner, I would use this. Go to the Global Alliance website, Google it, find it, and use that capability framework to guide your own career and set your own learning and development journey. At Waddington, we've coded this into a tool, into a spreadsheet, which I'll share actually on Twitter after this event, looking that helps you go through these 11 core competencies, and you can see there the numerous competencies, and you can score yourself as an individual, self-assess yourself against those on a scale of 1 to 5, and then sit with your manager or a third party to critically reflect on those. And obviously, if you spot any gaps in areas that are turning red that you want to go green, that's where you need to focus your learning and development. I think this is a really, really good framework for helping focus where you need to make interventions in your own learning and development. I do this every 6 months in terms of benchmarking my own skills and setting myself a plan for my own personal development. I had to do it as a student at Leeds Business School. You have to do it as part of your onboarding. I think it's a really, really powerful framework. I'm going to finish by talking about this aspect of professionalism, because if we as practitioners are to earn realize our optimum earning potential, we need to align as closely as possible with professional standards. Professional standards as recognized by the public. This is part of the way in which public relations is also going to address its own reputation by improving its practice. Now, I've thrown on a chart here the typical metrics that are used to judge a profession, and you can see public relations falls short in a number of areas. There isn't any need to formally adhere to a professional code of practice, to professionally accreditate, to formally follow any professional learning, even to have a qualification. And that can often be good in creating diverse ways and pathways into practice, but it causes issues in terms of us being recognised formally as a profession. And the CIPR is very firmly on addressing this agenda. But you can see, here's the challenge we've got. There are 100,000 practitioners working in practice now. According to the CIPR, and again, they kindly shared this data with me on Monday, thanks to John Gurlis at the CIPR, there's 476 chartered practitioners in working in practice, and there's just over 1,500 accredited practitioners. Now, out of a community of 100,000, that's a long way to go. For anybody that is accredited or is chartered, though, it's a huge opportunity because you're right at the vanguard of the profession. So we have this notion that public relations is professionalizing, but it's very slow. This has been the story of my career. I've been in this business 25 years, and this will continue to be an issue for as long as I remain in this. It won't get solved during my lifetime, I'm sure of that. How do you increase your earning potential then? Well, three things. You need to build skills aligned to competence, you need to gain experience, and you need to create a network that will help you create the connections to find and progress in your role. And participate in commsHERO and being part of the commsHERO community is a great way to do that. What we covered, we've looked at public relations and established that it is a really well paid profession. There's very clear opportunity for progression, and you can see the salary opportunities as you increase are open, and the thresholds that I've shown are means provided by the CIPR. They're not limits. Second point is, I'd suggest what we've learned from COVID is there are a number of growth areas in practice, certainly related to technology, certainly related to certain markets like fintech. If you really want to get ahead, those are the markets where, if you're starting out in your career, I'd go and build expertise and competency. I cannot recommend enough the need to benchmark your skills, both from a craft point of view, but also as a manager, and then address areas of competency that where you fall short, as a means of developing your own personal expertise and learning and development. And look at that data from the CIPR. We aspire to be a profession, but we are very, very a long way from it. And I said at the outset of this talk that you often get the phrase, you often hear the phrase imposter syndrome thrown around within the industry, and it's because of this. It's because people don't feel they have the necessary accreditation or recognition within organizations that they necessarily deserve. And my call to action to you is go out and get it, because no one's going to give it to you otherwise. And that's me. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and jump back on the screen, and hopefully Carly will disappear and we can have and we can have a conversation. Oh, you're back.
I'm reappearing rather than disappearing.
Yeah, reappearing.
That was great. Thank you so much. Really, really helpful session. And I've got a whole list of questions, but I think I'll have a look at these ones. I did just want to ask one thing though. So you said at the start that the PR industry has a it's kind of got a firm foundation now in being an industry that's really contributing to society and a great place to kind of level up your career. Do you think the cost of living and the recession and all those things will affect that at all, or do you think it's proven its worth to such a point that that it's just going to keep growing?
So two answers to that question. It's absolutely proved its worth. Anybody that that was working during the crisis in public health, in public communication, in any aspect of the public sector was run absolutely ragged during that time. We were right at the forefront in helping organizations retool their supply chains, realign their customer bases. So yeah, I think we earned our credentials then really, really strongly, and that provided an opportunity to build on it. If you look at the challenges we face now, right, with an energy crisis, just take the energy crisis in particular, it's clear that at the moment the government isn't providing any level of confidence that the lights are going to stay on during the winter. If there comes a moment when we have to look at issues such as energy saving or rationing, it's going to be professional communicators who help communicate that to the public. We know how to do it. We've done it through COVID. We've reached really hard to reach communities using techniques that we've proven ourselves with, and so yeah, I think these opportunities will provide further opportunity.
Yeah, well, that's good. So a lot of people were commenting on how that framework is looks like something that's really helpful. I think a lot of people are going to go away and do that. Ed Thomas says that giving yourself a 6 monthly skills audit is a top tip, but who should he sit down with to be the critical friend as he leads the comms team in his organization? Does the critical friend need to be a comms hero?
Yeah, go find someone, lean into your network and find someone who can sit down. And I get this from a number of places. So my partner Sarah Waddington, my fiercest critic, but also my greatest advocate, and I learned huge amounts from my supervisor Ralph Tench at Leeds Business School. I've got these people. I've got a sort of team around me who call me out on stuff. Colleagues I'll work with day to day who will provide that level of scrutiny. The important thing is the ability for reflection and to have an honest conversation with yourself, and it helps to have a third party in the room that can nudge you and make suggestions. It really does.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much. Lots to take away there and to reflect on, and hopefully we'll see a surge in PR professionals in the coming years, so that we can all trace back to this particular session. I think Stephen has frozen on me, but I'll just wrap up the session now. So thank you so much, Stephen. And if you stick around, we've got Kelsey Green up next, talking about accessibility with language and fonts and things like that. So that's going to be another really valuable session up next. As always, please do post your screen grabs, your shares, your likes, your comments using hashtag commsHERO. And we will see you at the next session. Thanks, everyone.